The story begins in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the great shining city planet that never sleeps. Inside one of the tall towers of the temple, Jedi Master Mace Windu sat alone, watching the skyline glow with traffic and lights. He had just sent Anakin Skywalker, the young Jedi Knight, to visit Chancellor Palpatine. Why? Because Mace had heard troubling news. Obi-Wan Kenobi, his trusted friend, had gone to face the Separatist leader General Grievous. That left Palpatine, the Chancellor, alone at the center of power. Mace did not fully trust him. He wanted Anakin to be there, to watch and report what Palpatine said and did. But once Anakin was gone, Mace Windu felt a heavy pressure in his heart. He knew something was about to happen, something that could change the galaxy forever. For once, he broke one of the unspoken Jedi rules. He acted on his fear. He entered a secret code into the temple's systems and sent out an urgent message to every Jedi Council Master across the galaxy. The message was simple. Drop everything. Come back to Coruscant immediately. This was unusual. The Jedi almost never did this. But Mace knew time was short. Soon he would have to confront Palpatine directly. He planned to bring a few Jedi with him, Kit Fisto, Aegin Kolar, and Say-Si-Teen. But he wanted the rest of the council close by, ready for whatever came after. One question burned in his mind. What about Anakin Skywalker? Would the young Jedi side with the Order or with Palpatine? Mace couldn't see the answer yet. Across the city, Anakin Skywalker was facing his own storm. In Palpatine's office, the Chancellor revealed his terrible secret. He was not simply a wise leader. He was Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord who had been hiding in plain sight for years. Anakin felt the world spin around him. His whole life had been shaped by the Jedi and their war against the Sith. Now the man he trusted most outside of the Jedi was admitting he was their greatest enemy. Anakin had to choose, tell the Jedi or join Sidious. For the moment, he chose to warn the Jedi. He returned to the temple and told Master Windu everything. Mace listened carefully, his face hard as stone. Then he gave Anakin an order. "Wait in the council chambers until we return." The words felt like chains to Anakin. He wanted to help. He wanted to decide things himself. But he obeyed, at least for a while. Meanwhile, Mace Windu and his small team of Jedi went to arrest Palpatine. The battle was quick and brutal. Kit Fisto, Aegin Kolar, and Say-Si-Teen all fell to Palpatine's blade. Only Mace remained, his purple lightsaber flashing in the Chancellor's office. At last, Mace overpowered Palpatine. He cornered him against a window, his saber ready to strike. Victory seemed close. But at that exact moment, Anakin rushed in. Palpatine, weak and scarred from the fight, begged Anakin for help. Mace, determined to end the Sith threat, raised his blade to deliver the final blow. Anakin froze. This was the moment. His choice would shape the galaxy. With a cry, he struck. His lightsaber slashed into Mace Windu, saving Palpatine's life. In an instant, Anakin had chosen his side. He had chosen the dark side. Palpatine, now fully revealed as Darth Sidious, hurled Mace Windu's body out into the city streets. The Jedi Master was gone. Back at the temple, the Jedi were waiting for news. Masters like Shak Ti and Sindralig felt the unease in the Force. Then from outside came the sound of marching boots. Anakin Skywalker, no longer a Jedi but Darth Vader, was climbing the temple steps with the 501st clone troopers behind him. But before the attack could fully begin, something unexpected happened. Reinforcements finally arrived. The emergency message Mace had sent earlier had worked. From across the galaxy, Jedi Council Masters had dropped their missions and rushed back to Coruscant. Yoda had left the Battle of Kashyyyk to Quinlan Vos. Obi-Wan had defeated Grievous and stolen a ship to return. Plo Koon, Ki-Adi Mundi, Ayla Secura, Luminara Unduli, Depa Bilaba, Coleman Kaj, Oppo Rancisis, and others all left their battles and hurried home. By the time they reached Coruscant's skies, the terrible news spread through their comms. Clone troopers everywhere had turned on the Jedi. Order 66 had begun. The council members felt pain in their hearts. Many of them had fought side by side with the clones for years. They trusted them like brothers. But Yoda's voice cut through their sorrow. The clones are no longer our allies. Treat them as you would battle droids. For the sake of the Order, they must be stopped. Down below, Anakin and the clones had reached the temple stairs when gunships roared overhead. Jedi starfighters swooped in, firing on the clones. Stas Ali, Coleman Kaj, and others attacked from the sky, forcing the clones to scatter. The battle for the Jedi Temple had begun. Inside, younglings huddled in training rooms. Padawans clutched their lightsabers in fear. Masters raced to defend the gates. And above it all, two figures met at the temple entrance. Obi-Wan Kenobi and his fallen apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan landed from his starfighter, igniting his blue blade. Anakin, now a Sith, stood with his own lightsaber burning bright. "Anakin, stop this madness," Obi-Wan pleaded. "Look around you." "The clones are killing Jedi children. Palpatine has lied to you." But Anakin's heart was full of anger and fear. He could not let go of the dark promise Sidious had whispered, the power to save Padme from death. He raised his saber. "You are weak, Obi-Wan. Sidious and I are stronger than all the Jedi. The Order will fall, and you can't stop it." With that, master and apprentice clashed, their blades sparking at the gates of the Jedi Temple. This was only the beginning. Inside the temple, thousands of clone troopers poured in, firing on anyone they saw. Out of the 10,000 Jedi who had once lived in the galaxy, only about 1,500 were inside the temple that night. Many of them were too young, too old, or untrained to fight. But when they saw the council masters returning, Yoda, Plo Koon, Shak Ti, Depa Bilaba, Ki Adi Mundi, Luminara, and more, hope rose again. The Jedi Temple was not going to fall without a fight. All right, here's part 2, rewritten in simple language for kids, ages 10 to 12. This part is longer, around 2,500 words, and continues the story from where part 1 left off. Part 2, The Battle for the Jedi Temple. The Jedi Temple had always been a place of peace. Its tall towers reached into the skies of Coruscant, its halls filled with younglings learning, masters teaching, and guardians watching over the galaxy. It was the home of the Jedi Order, the heart of their wisdom and strength. But on this night, the temple was under siege. Clones in the shadows. Hundreds of clone troopers in blue and white armor stormed up the steps, their boots thundering like drums. At their lead was Anakin Skywalker, no, Darth Vader now, his hood drawn low, his lightsaber gleaming blue against the red sunset. To the younglings peeking through temple windows, he looked like the hero they had always admired. But to the Jedi Masters, his presence was like a knife in the chest. The clones broke into smaller groups, using grappling hooks, jetpacks, and gunships to reach every level of the temple. Their blasters lit up the night as they fired into windows, breaking the silence with explosions and screams. Inside the halls, Jedi Temple guards, dressed in golden robes and masks, stood their ground, yellow lightsabers in hand. For years they had trained only to protect this place. Now, at last, their duty was tested. The first waves of clones clashed with the guards at the main entrance. Bolts of red blaster fire bounced off spinning lightsabers. Some guards fell, but others cut through rows of clones, their yellow blades sweeping in circles. Still, the clones kept coming. The younglings' fear. Deeper inside the temple, in one of the training rooms, a group of younglings huddled in a corner. They were children, no older than 10, their training sabers lying useless by their sides. The door slid open with a hiss. 10 clone troopers marched in, blasters raised. One of the younglings gasped, another cried softly. But before the clones could fire, a small green figure leapt into the room. Yoda, Grand Master of the Jedi, spun and twirled through the air, his green lightsaber flashing like lightning. He landed on a trooper's helmet, slicing through it, then leapt to another, cutting down 3 at once. Within seconds, all 10 clones lay defeated. Yoda deactivated his saber and turned to the children. "Hide, you must. Quiet and still until safe it is." The younglings nodded, tears in their eyes. Yoda gave them one last look before rushing back into the battle. Hope arrives. Outside, the skies above Coruscant were filled with fire. Jedi starfighters zoomed between buildings, dodging clone gunships and returning fire. At the head of the reinforcements was Master Plo Koon, his fighter weaving through enemy fire. Behind him came Luminara Unduli, Depa Bilaba, Ki Adimundi, Coleman Kaj, Oppo Rancisis, and others. Each Jedi had left their battles across the galaxy when Mace Windu's urgent call reached them. Now, together, they flew toward the temple. Through their calms, Yoda's voice spoke firmly. "The temple under attack is. From within, clones march. Betrayal this is. Trust the clones no longer." The Jedi all felt sorrow, but they also felt clarity. They had no choice now but to fight. Obi-Wan and Anakin. At the temple gates, 2 figures faced each other. Obi-Wan Kenobi stood with his blue blade steady, his face pale with disbelief. Across from him, Anakin Skywalker gripped his own saber, his eyes burning with anger. "You don't have to do this, Anakin," Obi-Wan pleaded, stepping slowly side to side. "The Jedi are not your enemies." "They tried to kill the Chancellor," Anakin snapped, his voice shaking. "They want to take over the Republic. I saw it myself. You're blind if you don't see it." Obi-Wan's chest tightened. The boy he had trained, the friend he had loved like a brother, was slipping away. He tried one last time. "Think of Padme. Think of the children inside this temple. Is this what she would want?" For a moment, Anakin hesitated, but then his anger surged back. "Don't talk about Padme," he roared, charging forward. Their sabers clashed with a crackle of energy. Obi-Wan ducked under Anakin's furious strikes, parrying and blocking as sparks flew around them. The battle between master and apprentice had begun. Inside the temple. Meanwhile, in the great halls, the clones poured in through shattered windows and blasted doors. Jedi Knights, Padawans, and Temple Guards fought fiercely to hold them back. The clash of blasters and lightsabers echoed through every corridor. Master Shak Ti spun her twin blades, cutting down clones as she guided a group of Padawans toward an escape route. Sin Dralig, the temple's head of training, fought with unmatched skill, his blade moving so quickly it seemed like 3 at once. But the clones were endless. For every squad defeated, 2 more stormed in. Explosions rocked the walls, shaking statues and toppling pillars. Then, from the skies, the council reinforcements arrived. Plo Koon's fighter landed hard on the temple steps, his blue blade igniting before his feet even hit the ground. Luminara and Depa followed, cutting their way through squads of troopers. Coleman Kaj leapt from his ship into the upper windows, slicing down gunship pilots as he went. The Jedi Council had returned, and the fight for the temple turned into a true war. Betrayal from within. As the Council rallied the defenders, a tragedy struck. Coleman Kaj, guiding a group of Padawans toward a back exit, suddenly froze. A golden temple guard stepped from the shadows, his yellow blade glowing. "Stay behind me," Coleman told the younglings, raising his green saber. But before he could react, the guard's saber pierced through his back. Coleman gasped, his eyes wide, then collapsed to the ground. The Padawans screamed. The guard revealed his face beneath the mask, cold, hardened. He was no longer loyal to the Jedi. He had joined Anakin and the clones. Soon he would be among the first of the Inquisitors, Jedi hunters who served the dark side. Before the traitor could strike again, Oppo Rancisis stormed in, his long tail whipping like a weapon. He lashed the guard against the wall, pinning him with coils of muscle. Dappa Bilaba rushed in as well, pulling down a broken pillar to crush the betrayer. The younglings were saved, but the shock was heavy. Even within their own ranks, betrayal had spread. The evacuation plan. At that moment, Senator Bail Organa arrived at the temple gates in a small speeder. He had heard rumors of the attack and wanted to see for himself. The clones moved to block his way, but Master Plo Koon cut them down swiftly. Bail stepped out, his face full of horror as he saw the chaos. "You must get the survivors out," Bail said urgently. "I'll help arrange transports." Yoda agreed. Quickly, Jedi began herding the remaining younglings, Padawans, and non-fighters toward the back exits, where transports from Alderaan hovered above the skyline. Every Jedi who could still fight formed a wall of defense, buying time for the evacuation. Shakti stood firm, her lightsabers flashing in every direction, protecting children as they boarded. One by one, groups of Jedi were loaded onto transports. The plan was desperate, but it was working. Obi-Wan's struggle. Down below, Obi-Wan's duel with Anakin raged on. Their sabers clashed in a storm of sparks, each strike heavier than the last. Anakin fought with raw fury, slamming Obi-Wan backward, his blade striking like a hammer. Obi-Wan, though wounded and weary, used his patience, dodging and countering with careful precision. "Stand down, Anakin," Obi-Wan cried, blocking a furious overhead strike. "You're destroying everything you once swore to protect." "I'm saving it," Anakin shouted, his face twisted with anger. "I'll bring peace, my way." Their blades locked blue against blue, the energy hissing between them. For a moment they stared into each other's eyes, master and apprentice, brother against brother. Then, with a surge of Force energy, Anakin shoved Obi-Wan backward, sending him crashing through a doorway into the temple's lower halls. The duel spilled deeper inside, leaving fire and ruin in their wake. By now, hundreds of clones had fallen. The Council Masters fought bravely, carving paths through the attackers. Yoda, Plo Koon, Dappa Bilaba, and Luminara stood together, their blades a wall of light. But for every clone they struck down, more arrived. Gunships swarmed overhead, flooding the temple with reinforcements. Hope flickered, but it was fragile. Still, the Jedi would not give in. They rallied the survivors, guarded the transports, and prepared for the hardest part of the night, getting off Coruscant alive. The battle for the Jedi Temple had only just begun. Perfect. Here's Part 3, rewritten for kids ages 10 to 12, around 2,500 words. This section covers the desperate evacuation, Sidious entering the fight, and the battles that follow. Part 3. Escape or Extinction. The Jedi Temple burned. Smoke curled into the sky, mixing with the glow of blaster fire. The grand marble steps were cracked and broken, bodies of clone troopers and fallen Jedi scattered across them. What had once been the shining heart of peace in the galaxy was now a battlefield. But inside, the Jedi still fought with every ounce of strength they had left. They were outnumbered, betrayed, and cornered, but not defeated. Evacuation begins. Senator Bail Organa stood at the back hangar doors, shouting instructions as more survivors hurried toward the evacuation ships. He was not a Jedi, but his courage was strong. He had called for transports from Alderaan and allied planets, and now sleek silver ships hovered above the temple roof, their ramps open and ready. "Quickly! Get them aboard," Bail urged, waving the younglings forward. Shakti deflected blaster bolts with blinding speed, guiding a group of frightened children into the nearest transport. Sindralig, bloodied but unbroken, blocked the doorway with his saber, making sure no clone passed through. The first transport lifted off, packed with Padawans, healers, and elders who could not fight. A second and third ship waited, but time was running out. "Hold the line!" Plo Koon shouted over the comms, his deep voice calm even in the chaos. "Protect the children at all costs." Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel. Deep in the lower halls, Obi-Wan and Anakin's battle tore through training rooms and archives. Shelves of ancient holocrons shattered as their blades sparked against stone and metal. Obi-Wan's breathing was heavy, but his resolve held firm. "Anakin, you still have a choice. Stop this before it's too late." "I've already chosen," Anakin growled, striking with all his fury. "The Jedi are traitors." "You don't understand." Their sabers clashed, pushing each other back and forth, neither willing to give in. They were equals in skill, but Anakin's anger made his attacks wild, while Obi-Wan's discipline kept him steady. Finally, with a powerful kick, Anakin hurled Obi-Wan across the chamber. Obi-Wan landed hard, clutching his side. Anakin stalked forward, eyes blazing. "You should have stayed out of my way," he hissed. Obi-Wan rose slowly, battered but unbroken. "I'll never stop trying to save you, Anakin. Even now." And with that, their duel continued, echoing through the temple like thunder. Betrayal strikes again. In another corridor, Master Coleman Kaj's body still lay where he had been struck down by the traitorous temple guard. The Padawans he had tried to protect wept quietly, clutching each other. But then Oppo Rancisis and Depa Bilaba arrived, their lightsabers flashing. "Come with us," Depa urged, guiding the younglings away from the bloodied floor. "Why would one of our own do this?" a Padawan whispered. Oppo's voice was grim. "The dark side twists hearts. Even Jedi are not safe from it." The Padawans followed, their trust shaken, but their hope reignited by the Master's presence. Yoda's stand. At the center of the temple, Yoda fought like a storm. His small frame moved with impossible speed, flipping, spinning, and striking down clones in every direction. Blaster bolts ricocheted off his green blade as he leapt from wall to wall. "Retreat to the transports." "Protect the younglings," he ordered, his voice firm. Beside him, Luminara Unduli spun her green saber gracefully, holding off squads of troopers. She nodded at Yoda. "I'll hold this corridor." "Go," but Yoda shook his head. "Alone you will not stand, Luminara. Together fight we must." The two masters stood back to back, their blades a wall of light. Clones fell in droves, but still they pressed forward, relentless as the tide. A glimmer of hope. By now, nearly 700 Jedi, young and old, masters and Padawans, had been herded into the transports. The ships were almost ready to lift off, their engines glowing. Shakti guided the last group of children up the ramp. She turned, her face determined. "I'll cover the rear." "No," Plo Koon said, placing a hand on her arm. "You've done enough. Go with them." Shakti hesitated, then nodded. With a final glance at the temple she had sworn to protect, she boarded the ship. Plo turned back toward the battle, his yellow blade whirling. His duty was not to escape. His duty was to buy them time. Sidious arrives. Just as the first transport began to rise into the air, a shadow fell over the hangar. Lightning split the sky. From the smoke and ruin at the front of the temple, a dark figure emerged, hooded, cloaked, and smiling with cruel delight. Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord raised his hands, crackling lightning surging from his fingertips. It struck the first transport's engines, frying them in an instant. The ship exploded in mid-air, fire raining down upon the temple roof. Hundreds of Jedi, children, healers, elders were lost in a flash. The survivors cried out in horror. Yoda's eyes narrowed. "Sidious," he whispered. The Sith Lord laughed, his voice echoing like thunder. "You cannot escape me, Jedi. Your order is finished." Duel of the Titans. Sidious stormed forward, red blade igniting with a hiss. Yoda leapt to meet him, his green saber clashing against the crimson glow. Sparks flew as Master and Sith locked blades. Plo Koon joined the fight, his blue saber striking from the side. Together, he and Yoda pressed Sidious, their blades moving faster than lightning. But Sidious was powerful, more powerful than most Jedi had ever imagined. His strikes were fierce, his laughter cruel, his lightning flashing with every swing. Still, Yoda and Plo did not falter. They fought not for themselves, but for every Jedi still alive, for every child boarding the transports, for the future of the galaxy. The last transport. In the chaos, one final transport prepared to launch. Inside, 350 Jedi crammed shoulder to shoulder, their faces pale with fear but bright with hope. At the controls sat a young Padawan named Bennett. Her hands shook as she gripped the yoke. She had flown training missions, but never something like this. "Steady," Bail Organa said gently from behind her. "You can do this." Benny nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars above. She guided the transport upward past the smoke and fire, but above them a blockade of clone star destroyers waited, guns aimed at the skies. Hold together," Bennett whispered, punching in hyperspace coordinates. Allies in the sky. Just as the blockade prepared to fire, flashes of light tore through hyperspace. Ships from Alderaan, Naboo, Chandrila, Moncala, and more burst into the system, weapons blazing. Senators loyal to freedom had answered Bail Organa's call, sending their fleets to protect the Jedi. Blaster fire lit up the skies as clone ships turned to face the new arrivals. Benet gasped, relief flooding her chest. "We have a chance." Through the cockpit window, she saw a familiar sight. Deepa Bilaba piloting a Corellian fighter, weaving through explosions and blasting clone interceptors from the skies. She gave Benet a quick nod of encouragement before spinning back into the battle. The Padawan smiled for the first time that night. With her allies' protection, she pushed the throttle forward, guiding the transport into hyperspace. The ship streaked away into the stars, carrying hundreds of Jedi to safety. Back at the temple. On the burning roof, Yoda and Plo Koon pressed their duel against Sidious. The Sith Lord struck with fury, lightning bursting from his fingers, but the Jedi held strong. At last, with a swift strike, Yoda severed Sidious's lightsaber hilt, sending it spinning into the air. Sidious snarled and raised his hands to unleash more lightning, but Plo Koon leapt forward, seizing the red blade from mid-air. He plunged both sabers deep into Sidious's chest. The Sith Lord shrieked, lightning crackling wildly, before collapsing to the ground. His hood fell back, revealing the scarred, twisted face of Palpatine. For a moment, silence filled the temple. Then Yoda and Plo deactivated their blades, breathing hard. Sidious, the Sith Lord who had ruled from the shadows, was no more. But victory came at a terrible price. The temple was in ruins, its halls littered with the fallen. Half the Jedi who had once been inside were gone, killed by clones, betrayal, or the explosion of the first transport. Still, some had survived. Children, Padawans, healers, and even a few masters had escaped into hyperspace. Their hope lived on. Yoda turned to Plo Koon, his face weary but resolute. "Gone the Sith Lord is, but hidden we must remain. Strike again, the darkness will." Plo nodded. Together they vanished into the underworld of Coruscant, carrying the wounded and the memories of all they had lost. The Jedi Temple stood scarred, broken, but unbowed, and though the night had been filled with fire and death, a spark of light remained, small, fragile, but alive. All right, here's part 4, written for kids ages 10 to 12, around 2,500 words. This part follows Depa Bilaba's rescue, Obi-Wan and Anakin's fate, and the surviving Jedi regrouping. Part 4, Shadows and Survivors. The battle at the Jedi Temple was over, but the galaxy was far from safe. Smoke rose from the towers, clone troopers still prowled the streets, and whispers of betrayal spread like wildfire. Darth Sidious had been struck down by Yoda and Plo Koon, but his darkness lingered. His death did not end the war. It only shifted it into something new, something uncertain. Depa's mission. Depa Bilaba ran across the rooftops of Coruscant, her cloak torn, her saber still in her hand. She had seen the final transport escape into hyperspace. That was good. But her duty wasn't finished. She followed a trail of destruction through the lower city, scorched walls, broken droids, smashed windows. She could feel it through the Force, the clash of two powerful warriors, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. Depa leapt over an alley and landed on the edge of a collapsed warehouse. The roof was torn open, beams and rubble scattered everywhere. Smoke drifted from the ruins. She looked down and froze. There, half buried in rubble, lay two figures. Obi-Wan, his face bloodied and one eye scarred. Anakin, his robes torn, blood running down his brow. Both were unconscious, their lightsabers lying nearby. For a moment, Depa stood still, her heart racing. She had trained beside Obi-Wan for years, trusted him, and Anakin, though reckless, had once been a shining hope of the Jedi. Now he was a traitor, a Sith. Yet she could not leave them. A desperate rescue. Summoning the Force, Depa lifted heavy slabs of rubble off their bodies. She slung Obi-Wan across her back, his breath shallow but steady. Then she turned to Anakin. Her hand hesitated. His presence in the Force was twisted, shadowed. He had led clones into the temple. He had betrayed them. But he was still alive, and perhaps he could be saved. Depa shackled his wrists with Jedi cuffs, then used a Force trick to keep him deeply asleep. With both men secured, she staggered toward a civilian hangar nearby. Her legs trembled under the weight, but the Force gave her strength. Inside the hangar, she found a small freighter. She loaded Obi-Wan into a medical pod, connecting him to a Bacta pouch to heal his wounds. Anakin she locked in a reinforced cell, setting up ray shields around him. Then she piloted the ship into the busy skies of Coruscant, blending in with streams of traffic. From the outside, it looked like any ordinary freighter. From within, it carried the fate of two Jedi, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Yoda and Plo's escape. Elsewhere, Yoda and Plo Koon fled into the Undercity. They carried with them the broken but living body of Mace Windu. Though Sidious had hurled him out a window earlier, faint traces of life still clung to him. In a quiet, shadowed alcove, Yoda and Plo knelt by Mace. Together they placed their hands on him, channeling the healing energy of the Force. Slowly his chest rose. A shallow breath escaped his lips. Alive. Barely. "We must hide," Plo said gravely. "If the clones find us, he will not survive." Yoda nodded. "To the shadows, then." "Wait, we must. Plan, we must." The three of them disappeared into the depths of Coruscant's underworld, unseen by clone patrols above. The survivor's journey. Far above, the last transport sped through hyperspace. Inside, hundreds of Jedi sat in silence, the hum of the engines their only comfort. Padawan Benet, still at the controls, kept her eyes on the star lines. Her hands shook less now. Depa Bilaba's nod of confidence had steadied her, and Bail Organa's calm words still echoed in her ears. Behind her, children huddled together, masters comforted the wounded, and Padawans whispered prayers. They had lost so much, friends, teachers, even their home. But they had survived, and survival meant hope. Their destination, a hidden planet called Ach-To, an ancient world of the Jedi. There they would rebuild. Padme's choice. Back on Coruscant, in a quiet chamber far from the battle, Senator Padme Amidala sat alone. Her hands rested on her stomach, feeling the movement of the twins growing within her. She had heard whispers of what had happened. The Jedi Temple attacked, clone troopers turning on their commanders, and Anakin, her Anakin, seen leading the assault. Her heart ached. She wanted to deny it, but the Force whispered the truth. When Bail Organa contacted her, telling her of the survivors, she knew she had to act. She would meet the Jedi again, not as a senator, but as a mother, bringing new life into a galaxy drowning in war. On Ach-To. The survivors' transport emerged from hyperspace above Ach-To, a world of endless oceans dotted with small green islands. The planet was ancient, its secrets buried in stone temples and forgotten caves. The Jedi landed on a rocky cliffside. The survivors disembarked slowly, their eyes wide as they looked upon their new refuge. "This will be our home," Luminara said softly, though sorrow weighed in her voice. "Not forever," Plo Koon reminded her, stepping off a small shuttle with Yoda and the barely breathing Mace Windu. "But for now, it is safe." The Jedi began to work quickly. They cleared caves for shelter, set up training grounds, and tended to the wounded. It was not the Grand Jedi Temple of Coruscant. It was small, rough, and hidden, but it was theirs. Anakin's prison. In one of the caves, a ray-shielded cell glowed faintly. Inside sat Anakin Skywalker, shackled, his head bowed. When he awoke, confusion and rage flooded him. He reached for the Force, but the cuffs held him tight. He tried to speak, but no one answered. Then, one day, Mace Windu entered. His face was scarred, his movements slow, but his eyes sharp. He stood silently for a long moment before speaking. "You betrayed us," Mace said quietly. "You tried to kill me. You led soldiers against our home." Anakin looked up, his eyes burning. "I was saving the Republic." "You don't understand." "Perhaps," Mace replied. "But now you will sit, and you will think, and maybe one day you will see what you have done." He turned and left, leaving Anakin alone in the silence of his cell. A new council. Weeks passed. The galaxy trembled with uncertainty. With Sidious gone, the Senate was in chaos. Senators like Bail Organa and Mon Mothma tried to steer the Republic toward peace, but fear still lingered. On Ach-To, the Jedi rebuilt slowly. Only 4 council members remained strong: Yoda, Plo Koon, Depa Bilaba, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had finally healed from his wounds. Together, they formed a new, smaller council to guide the survivors. They trained the younglings, healed the wounded, and searched the stars for scattered Jedi who might still be alive. Though their numbers had fallen from thousands to only a few hundred, their spirit remained. The Jedi Order lived on. Anakin's regret. In his cell, Anakin began to change. At first, he raged, shouting, demanding, cursing the Jedi. But as days turned to weeks and weeks to months, his anger dimmed. He saw the faces of the children he had once trained beside. He dreamed of the temple burning, the younglings screaming. He saw Padmé's eyes full of disappointment and sorrow. And in those long, lonely hours, regret began to grow. When Padmé finally arrived on Ahch-To, bringing with her newborn twins, Luke and Leia, Anakin broke. Tears streamed down his face as he saw them, but Padmé turned away, unable to let him near. "You did this," she whispered. "You destroyed our family." Anakin pressed his hands to the barrier of his cell, but the ray shield held firm. His heart ached, but he could not undo what he had done. The spark of the future. Despite the pain, life returned to the Jedi. Children trained with wooden sabers, masters meditated by the sea. Obi-Wan told stories to the younglings, while Yoda guided them in the ways of the Force. Luke and Leia grew quickly, laughing as they chased each other across the cliffs. To them, Ahch-To was not a place of exile, but a place of wonder. The Order was smaller now, humbler. But perhaps that was what the Jedi needed. No longer generals in a war, but guardians of peace. As the twin suns of Ahch-To set over the ocean, Depa Billaba stood with Obi-Wan, watching the younglings train. "We lost so much," she said softly. "Yes," Obi-Wan agreed, "but we still have hope. And that is enough." Far away in the deep corners of the galaxy, whispers of the Sith still lingered. Sidious was dead, but darkness was patient. New threats would rise, new battles would come. But for now, on the cliffs of Ahch-To, the Jedi rested, broken, scarred, but alive. Their light had not gone out, and though Anakin Skywalker sat alone in his cell, the future would one day call his children to carry that light forward, to grow again under new leadership,